2018 this time. We'll open the work session for discussion. Whoever wants to take the lead, you want to take Mr. Priest?
Yes, sir. The first item on our work session agenda is our work session protocol. We have heard a concern that our work sessions are too short. I sent out an email about the options, and I think there are really three. One, we can have work sessions on either the second or fourth Monday, with the caveat that if there's something to be moved forward that needs attention or adoption, we can address it after the work session. Another alternative is we can move our starting time to 7 p.m., start the work session at 6 p.m. on both the second and fourth Mondays, and then we have an hour. A third option might be to start the work session at 6, start the regular meeting at 6:30 as it is in our Code of Ordinances, and then, if we have not completed the work session, recess the regularly scheduled meeting and finish the work session, and then go back to our regular session meeting. So, those are three alternatives. I suspect there are more, but I throw that out for consideration, discussion, or whatever by the mayor and council members.
Alan, you want to start off? Or?
Well, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Sometimes we don't need any more time. I mean, you know, but in several cases recently, we never even got halfway through with what was on the agenda of the work session.
Correct.
So that there's one issue. If you make it an whole hour, what about the times where we have short agendas or don't have very much in the work session, and you get through with it in 30 minutes? I guess we could eat donuts or something. No, I'm just joking. But I mean, you see what I'm saying? Maybe the third option would be a good option. I don't know. I just don't want us to give up on the work session. I think it's very important to in our decision-making process. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but surely there's a way we can work this out.
You got any thoughts on it?
Myself, I go along with option 3. As Alan said, sometimes we need a little bit more time, but oftentimes we're running too much time and not really well accomplished. My only problem with the work session is that, like tonight, we have 2 people here who showed up for our work session. And if those statistics hold true, people in this community just don't give a darn about how the city government runs.
Can I say something more? Well, I don't mean to interrupt because I forgot to mention this while I do that, but actually the work session has to be open to the public, but the work session is for our benefit. And I ain't being, but technically they can sit there and listen, but in a few work sessions ago, the citizens spoke, and it takes up time in the work session.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody come that wants to come, but at the same time, the work session shouldn't include citizens' comments.
Well,
But the reason I say that is because this is for all of us sitting up here to discuss things and decide help us make decisions.
the people who need to help us make decisions people sitting out there.
Okay, well,
So we can agree to disagree. It's not a problem.
that's fine too, but I just, maybe with an hour's time, you got time for everybody that wants to make a comment to make a comment, but the way it's been up until now, I mean, you know, when you got 30 minutes and 5 things in a work session to address and then 5 people making a comment, we never got to half of what, and I just asked the question later in the work session, did the citizens, did you have to give appropriate time for them to make comments? And you don't. But if y'all want to, that's fine with me. It was just something, it's taking up, it could take up some time. Citizens make comments in the regular meeting. But like you said, we agree to disagree. I'm open for anything. I'd rather have it than not have it. That's where I'm at with it. I mean, I'm kind of being opinionated about it, but I don't want to not have it.
You can be opinionated. One of the points I like about the work session is that we get to discuss the items on the agenda. And that would include input from the community that we're supposed to be representing. I'd like to know how those people feel. And base a vote, decision made on the feelings of the people that I'm here to represent. And if we don't allow that, you say we allow it in the agenda, but we don't till after the vote. The only place to present that is at the discussion in the work session. So I feel strongly that the people have a right to voice their opinion in the work session. And I'm very adamant about that. I want to hear from the people.
Well, I do too, and I'm just saying, I just wish I knew how other municipalities handle the work session. I didn't want to make it sound like I didn't want to, I just didn't want it taking up all our time in the work session, basically.
True, but I have to still go along with Mr. Grieshaber's suggestion number 3, that we have this work session at 6 p.m. and that we continue the work session into the regular meeting if we need to. But most instances, it's short and gives us a few minutes to meditate before we actually go into the actual council meeting for the night, where the people don't get a chance to voice their opinion until after the meeting is over. So I'm in favor of option 3. Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Mr. Keith?
I think any way you slice it, you're looking at potential challenges, because historically the city operates on a this is the way we've always done it type of mentality. And if we're ever gonna take strides in progress, we're gonna have to take strides in decisions. Having said that, I read an article this week. It was toward public administrators and elected leaders of local municipalities, and it had a very compelling argument that read, it is our responsibility to act or make decisions and policy based on law, while doing so being fair and ethical, moving policy forward. So in having that thought in my mind, if we're going to start seeing changes that we've not experienced before, we're going to start doing things we've never done before. So having said that, my thought process is I want to operate more efficiently, and I'm for a second or fourth Monday work session and a second or fourth council meeting. And to me, that gives the opportunity to have city business be brought up during a work session. It gives the public the opportunity to give us feedback during the comments portion of the said work session. And the thing that, the ideas that we brought up, all three of us, the unique thing about it is none of us are wrong. We're just trying to figure out what fits. And but having said that, I think that, and again, it's personal opinion, but from the research that I've done and my mindset wrapping around it, I'm for a second or fourth Monday work session or a second and fourth, subsequently a second and fourth council meeting to vote, things like that, in the work session for us to talk amongst ourselves with no decisions made, and it allows the opportunity for citizens' comments to give us any direction in that. That's my opinion.
And that gives you some time to do some research too.
Right.
You know,
And business is done a little bit slower, but it's done more efficiently.
And I happen to agree with Willie in a lot of ways.
Say that again one more time.
Yeah, we agree on that. But no, and I don't agree that so much about we've always done it that way, because this is how we always done it before. We had the second and fourth. One was devoted as a work session, and then, where, like you said, it was talked about. And then the next meeting, we would actually take action on things that we discussed. And like you said, gives the citizens opportunity to speak on the matters before we vote. And additionally, it gives them 2 weeks to contact us personally by phone or whatever and say, this is what I feel. So I would, if I get a vote, which I don't unless y'all tie it up, my vote would be to go to either the second as a work session, fourth as a voting session, and basically back to what it was in the past. That would be my input into it. I have concerns about adding another hour, not so much for me, because like I said, when I asked the folks to vote for me, if we have to sit here until 10 o'clock, so be it, to conduct the business of the city. But from the citizens, if they want to make one comment, to ask them to sit there for 2 or 3 hours, I don't know, but that would be my vote, if I get a vote. So, with that, who else wants to come?
what you think about every other week and every other week night?
I'm certainly fine with that. I've seen it many ways. One, if you want to have a work session, it'll have to be phrased so after the work session, matters that have to be handled can be handled, because when you get into the budget and millage rate, there are certain time constraints that will keep you from going one voting meeting a month and things like that.
Right, that was a concern of mine, is how to appropriately handle situations that needed to be voted on within a specific
But
time frame.
but if we went this way, it would not preclude the mayor singularly of calling a special call meeting if needed to handle those matters. Or if I said, no, I don't want to call it, 2 of you guys can. Or Ms. Hines. if
There's ways
one
to
of them.
handle it.
So there would be a little clause in there that after the work session, if something was a priority, it could be.
I don't think
I
you
don't
need a
think
call.
you need that. I
You
think
could just
you've
vote
got-
to amend the agenda.
I think through your charter provisions and the Georgia Open Meetings Act, you have the ability to have a special call meeting with 24-hour notice, as little as 24-hour notice. There's even certain circumstances where you can have an emergency meeting if you need to. So you already have the ability to do that, and so I think what you would do is, if, as the city manager suggested, you've got a situation where, for instance, setting your millage, where you've gotten, the date from the tax commissioner's office that the millage rate has to be set by, as an example, and that's before the fourth Monday in the month. Then you just plan to have a called meeting that month, either at your second Monday meeting or any other night that it worked out for you. You'd have a call meeting to accomplish that purpose.
And even if there was not 24 hours, like he said, there are legal ways that we can call an emergency meeting if something comes up that just absolutely has to be done.
Just like you would handle it now, if an emergency
Right.
came up and, you didn't have a meeting for another week and a half, there's a mechanism to address that, and you can do the same thing with it.
But if it was a priority thing and it happened to fall about the time of the work session, it could just be publicly noted that
That's
there's gonna be
exactly
a vote on
You'll have a called meeting
the call
at
meeting, okay.
6:30 or, whatever time on that evening.
And
Yes.
Mr. Mitchelling, if we had a work session and something, or even, well, let's just say a regular meeting, and could they or could they not amend the agenda to, vote on something, have a first reading of,
Well, you couldn't add a work session,
I mean, at the regular.
but at a regular session, yes, you could amend your agenda to add items if you needed to. Absolutely.
And it would give a lot more opportunity for citizens to make comments if it was a dedicated work session.
I mean, I've heard a lot of citizens say they don't come to the meeting to voice their opinion because they don't like to speak in public. Well, they can talk one-on-one on the telephone and by email, however they choose.
Social media.
Well, yeah. Okay, sure.
Surely not.
Anyway,
If that is the direction that you want to go to, for example, have the second Monday of the month be a work session and the fourth Monday be a regular council meeting, that would require an ordinance amendment to amend section 2-23 of the Code of Ordinances that right now says the second and fourth Monday of each month shall be designated as regular city council meetings. But of course, that's easy enough to handle, and we could have the first reading of an ordinance to accomplish that at your next meeting, if that's the direction you want to go.
and would it be proper to amend tonight's agenda to call for a vote on this, to whether?
Well, I think you
to
could,
do
yes,
the ordinance?
you could amend your, agenda tonight to have a vote as to whether or not to change your meeting schedule going forward, and if you voted in favor of that, then we could have the first reading of the ordinance at your next meeting.
You got your options.
We got a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Danny, you got?
You not gonna look?
Not only can you, you have to.
I think I might be able to simplify this for y'all just a little bit. Seems how me and two other of our citizens are here, I guess I represent 1/3 of the city. So I'm gonna tell you what 1/3 of the city thinks. Anyway, I understand what you're trying to get at, Mr. King, about people being able to speak, and I wholeheartedly believe in that, but I've sat up here and watched you guys show up at meetings on Monday night, and our fine city attorney, manager here, reads off a list of things that y'all are gonna talk about, and I see stars in a few of his eyes where you don't know what he's talking about. And that is where I think the work sessions derived from. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what started all this. And I really believe that you guys need to sit here, and I believe 30 minutes is plenty of time to talk about what's on the agenda. And he can explain it to you, or y'all can ask him questions or whatever. But I don't think it's up to the citizens to ask questions and put stuff in at that time. Because what's on the agenda that y'all are talking about is gonna come up in the meeting later, the 6:30 meeting for the regular city council meeting. So that's when people can get up and give their comments. Y'all really need to talk this stuff out yourselves. Y'all don't need our input for your information coming from the city manager. Something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
That leads to another option, that the agenda be handled so that when an item comes before the council makes a motion, seconds the motion, then it's open for discussion among the council members, and then, depending upon the will of the council, they can ask for comment, public comment. That's the way other jurisdictions have handled citizens' comments. They don't have them at the end, they have them after every agenda item and before the final vote. So that's another option to consider.
I don't know of any jurisdiction that's done that. Are you aware of any?
Albany, Georgia.
Never been to Albany, so that's probably why I'm not familiar with it. But yes, ma'am. Oh, I thought you wanted to speak.
First of all, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think state law does not require the city council to allow citizens to express an opinion. However, this city council, thankfully, has always allowed its citizens to express whatever was on their mind about a question that was coming before the city council. Historically, we could do that in advance of a question or a meeting that you all were going to address a subject. When the new city manager came on board, that was changed. So now we can only address you all at the end of a meeting. And speaking from experience, I know that oftentimes city council members will learn something from a citizen based on what they have said and expressed an opinion about a question before them. I like what Mr. Grosheber just suggested, which was to allow, citizens to address a question before a vote was taken on each item. I realize it may take more time, but then again, citizens may not say anything. We don't know right now how much time will be required. And I remember saying this when all of you were running. You better be prepared to spend some time if you get elected, because this job requires time, and you do have to study your material and come prepared and be ready to address questions and make a decisive answer. Thank you.
Well, again, like I would say with the second and the fourth, the way it worked in the past, what we discussed on the second Monday would be the agenda for the fourth Monday. If something emergency comes up, that could be handled. But what the fourth Monday night would be, the agenda would be what everybody, council members and citizens have had a chance to talk about at the second Monday. That's the way it worked in the past. I don't know why it can't work in the future. But we got just a few minutes right now, about 5 minutes if we want to cover that second subject.
Well, the second subject is talking about items on the agenda. So I suspect what the council is saying, that we want to amend the agenda to put on work sessions, on a work session on the second Monday, regular council meeting on the fourth Monday. Is that correct?
It would have to come in the form of a motion, I think.
Well, we'll amend
That's
the
what they wanna
agenda,
do.
so that's a possibility. And second, I have a special event application that I'd like to put on the agenda. And I'd like to take the discussion approval of the community revitalization plan off the agenda.
So what do we need to do there? Make a motion?
Well,
When it
there's no
comes to,
motions here, but
when it comes to the
meeting is-
regular meeting.
In about 3 minutes, when we open the meeting, when I call for the adoption of the agenda, that'd be the time to make any recommendation. Okay. Is that it?
That's it, sir?
Well, we can stand in recess for 3 minutes or adjourn this one if you want, then we just, 3 minutes, we'll reconvene in our regular meeting.
You know, I did want to say that Danny
Go
made
out
a,
of your nose and here.
made a point. I guess I opened this can of worms up about the work session, but it was because I felt like I was coming to meetings and asked to make a decision about things I didn't completely understand. And that's solely why I earlier said that it was for us.
To amend the code of ordinances of the city of Grantville to make the second Monday of every month a work session and the fourth Monday of every month a regularly scheduled meeting starting at 6:30 p.m. I would also like to amend the agenda to add a special event permit, The Walking Dead Season 9 Premiere Party by Danielle Danielle Caldwell. I apologize for that. And thirdly, I'd like to amend the agenda to remove the item discussion / approval of community revitalization plan.
Okay, you've heard the comments of the city manager. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda? And add those items and remove the one item.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion, to have a second.
Second.
Have a motion second. Do we have any question or further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Next order will be the approval of the minutes for the
Mr.
regular.
Mayor, you'll need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
That's what we just did.
You just had a motion to amend the agenda. Now you
Okay,
need a
now,
motion
okay.
to approve the amended agenda, please.
Now, do I have a motion to approve the amended?
I'll make the motion to do that.
Okay, have a motion, do I have a second?
And a second.
Have a motion is second. Any questions, discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Now we're going to approve the regular minutes for the August 27, 2018 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as published?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion second, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Okay, the next order of business is a public hearing for alcoholic beverage license for the consumption on the premises of beer and wine for Nico's Family Restaurant located 24 Main Street, Grantville, Georgia, 30220. Mr. Grishaber.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Turn it over to
Mayor.
you.
We have received an alcohol beverage license. It has been advertised, and a public notice has been posted that it would be coming before the city council today at your regularly scheduled meeting. So we're holding a public hearing. The public hearing will open at 6:36 for anyone who wants to speak in favor of the alcohol beverage license application. It is for the consumption on the premises of beer and wine for Nico's Family Restaurant, which will be located at 24 Main Street, Grantville, Georgia.
Is the applicant present?
The applicant is not.
Has how about the advertising and all, have we met all the requirements of time as far as state law or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
City clerk has taken care of that. It's in your package.
I don't see a survey in here. Was there a survey that's supposed to be part of the application? Was there a survey submitted?
Not to my knowledge, sir. Distance-wise,
The ordinance says a survey by a registered surveyor of the location, and that's the purpose of it, is to establish distances from anything that schools, churches, etc.
I don't know. I believe the applicant has just walked in.
Is that something that we need to have before we move forward, Mr. Mitchell?
Well, there are requirements under your ordinance and under state law for distances from certain churches and schools, and so I don't know. You may have that information otherwise, I don't know. You may know that there aren't any churches or schools within the required distances.
I don't know what those required distances are.
But, I mean, we've approved a permit, a light permit for that.
That same location before,
Would you say it's 1,000 feet? Is that ring a bell? I just, we just got another one. Oh,
100 yards of a church, 200 of a school, I think it is. As Mr. Key said, I think there's been a license at that location previously.
actually, there was one across the tracks at the bank building, and it is much closer to the
I
church.
think we're right.
Yeah, I think we're within our scope.
Before we went too far. And so, where we at, asking if anybody in favor, or
We asked if anybody's in favor, then the city attorney had a comment. Is there anybody opposed? Then I believe,
not in favor, not opposed?
Mr. Mayor, you can close the public hearing at 6:39.
6:39. we'll declare the public hearing closed at 6:39.
And that'll come up for approval later under new business. So the first thing under old business, Mr. Mayor, is an announcement that the special call meeting and public hearing on September the 17th, 2018 at 6 p.m. for the Nokia presentation is canceled. They are unable to be there. One of the presenters broke her foot and had surgery. You will hear later that that meeting will be rescheduled for Wednesday, September 26th at 6 p.m. That announcement will come under new business. So the first item under old business is for your consideration, approval of Lord X Sargent, a full-service architectural and design firm for the restoration of the Freight Depot and Sarah O'Kelly Municipal Auditorium. This comes after the public hearing that was held on August 27th, 2018, at which time the Historic Preservation Commission was present and had the opportunity. We recommend approval.
Now, this is only for the Freight Depot and the Municipal Auditorium.
Correct. It goes along with our grant application to the Fox Theater Institute. Lord X Sargents are one of the 3 recommended architectural design firms for historic preservation from the Fox Institute.
Okay, but the Fox is not involved in the Freight Depot at all, are they?
No, sir. They are not involved in anything other than they are a source of grants. And we have applied to them for a planning grant for the Sarah O'Kelly Municipal Auditorium.
Okay, okay, before I ask for a motion on this, Ms. Hines is not here tonight due to illness in the family, but she has expressed to me she wishes to be a part of the vote and absentee vote. I've been informed that this is a option, and so I guess at this time I need to try to call her and get her on the phone, huh?
If she wishes to participate by telephone, she,
Hey Ruby, this is Doug. We're in session and I have you on speaker. We're about to ask for a motion to approve Lord AECK Sargent as, for the Freight Depot and the O'Kelly Municipal Auditorium. And you had expressed that you wanted to be a part of that vote.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I'm so sorry, but I'm in the waiting room and I did not hear your entire conversation. Would you please repeat what you said?
Okay, I'm about to ask for a motion to approve the Lord AECK Sargent as the architect and design firm for the restoration of both the Freight Depot and the Sarah O'Kelly Municipal Auditorium. And you had expressed that you wanted to be a part of that vote.
Yes, I do. At this present time, my heart is not settled on those two projects.
Okay, well, let me interrupt you. Let me see if we can even get a motion and a second on it, then we'll call for the vote.
Okay.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve this company as the full-service architectural design firm for the restoration of both the Freight Depot and the Sarah Kelly Municipal Auditorium?
I'll make a motion.
All right, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All right, do we have any questions or discussions?
I do have a question.
Hold on, Ms. Hines, if you will.
I wanted to make one thing clear. This has all been a little confusing, I think, to everybody. But these people don't get any money until we get a grant,
You will get a planning grant.
planning grant. Okay. Grant money will pay for this.
It'll partially pay for that.
Okay. But it puts in motion the grant process.
Correct.
Right.
We have submitted the grant, but they would be the lead in the grant.
Through our grant writer.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How about you, Mr. King?
I'm in favor of it.
Okay. All right, Ms. Hines, do you want to comment now?
Yes, but I did not understand because this is kind of noise in here. What Mr. Greenshaver was saying, I believe it was his voice I heard.
He was saying that no, this company or nor any other company would get any money at this time, only if we were successful in getting the grant. And actually, I unless I'm mistaken, we're looking at two different grants. One from the Fox Group, and the other one from wherever.
We are primarily, for the Sarah O'Kelly Municipal Auditorium, looking forward to a planning grant from the Fox Theater Institute. Planning grant,
But you're asking for approval on both of them.
correct. Economies of scale.
Pardon me?
Economies of scale.
Okay. You use one of them legal terms on it.
What does that mean, Al?
If you have two, when they make one visit, they can look at both buildings.
Thank you.
I plan to use them without spending a lot of money to help out other places when they're here.
Okay. Am I at liberty to speak now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, with that being said, even with that being said, Mr. Mayor and all, I just don't have receipts about that right now, as much as they do need to be renovated. I just don't have a piece, but I just don't. And right now, I can't go in favor of it because I don't have the piece about it. If that makes sense to you.
That's up to you. At this point, we're just asking for comments or questions, discussion, not for the vote yet. Did you have anything else?
No, that's my comment. I really don't have people about it.
Okay.
So when the vote comes, okay.
All right. You'll stand by. Mr.
I
Key.
will.
Okay, Mr. Key has no comments. My only comments are that I don't necessarily of some limited construction background, I don't see coupling them together where that's gonna save us much of anything. And at this point, I actually think to approve them before we get any grant is putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. I mean, we may or may not get the grant. And if we don't, then all this is for naught.
But
That's my input.
did I understand it that we have to have somebody like this in place to get the grant?
Yes, you have to identify the architect who's going to work on the project to receive the grant.
Right, it's just part of the grant process. That's
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
nothing more, nothing less at this point.
If it's not this bunch, it's somebody else. Maybe I think what my point
Well,
is.
it's not just part of the grant, because if you approve them tonight, they are the ones that'll do both of these buildings.
Correct. That is correct. And they are the one that we are recommending to do the planning for the Sarah O'Kelly Municipal Auditorium, for which we submitted the grant application.
Right, and the grant is for not without one of these names on there.
Correct.
Right.
But my point is, the freight depot does not have this requirement that somebody be on there before we're moving in a different direction. The Fox Theater may require this. But
Sure,
the
I
freight depot
understand
is
what
a
you're saying.
totally independent thing, and I just,
But I also agree with the economies of scale also.
we agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
All right, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving Lord Sergeant, a full-service architect and design firm for the restoration of the freight depot and the Sarah O'Kelly Municipal Building, signify by
Aye.
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it, so ordered. Okay, now, Ms. Hines, there's been an amendment to the agenda for tonight to add, whether or not to add, or we're going to call for a vote shortly to make the second week of the month a work session. The fourth week would be a voting full meeting. Do you want to stay on the phone and partake of that or not?
Yes, I will.
Okay. And I'll let you know when we're ready for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Next order, where do we want to add that, Mr. Grisha, under the?
New business.
Under the new, all right. All right, the next order of business, interior design work for the passenger depot. Mr. Oldham Designs?
Yes, sir. I received a message earlier today from K.A. Odom Design, and although it says we respectfully rescind our proposal to participate in the passenger depot project, I suspect there's a typo. And since they are not here tonight, I think that they are saying we respectfully rescind our proposal. In other words, they typed an E instead of an I. But notwithstanding that, since they are not here tonight and they were informed of the presentation, we will move to Kyle Campbell for presentation. Pardon me, Kyle Campbell, Preservation South is here, so I'll turn the floor over to Kyle. If you'd come up to the podium, please. And let him talk about his proposal for the interior design of the passenger depot.
Thank you. I propose to pass around if that's all right.
Please use the mic so that she can.
Sure.
uh,
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you for having me. So my firm oversaw the planning and implementation of the exterior restoration on the passenger depot, and I've been talking with the mayor and city manager about goals for future use of the building and ways that it can be restored. So the objectives that we kind of outlined on page 2 are provide a space for a visitor center for Grantville, as well as develop a multifunctional museum space. They would like to retain the historic integrity of the depot because it is a pretty rare example of its architectural style, and given that it's on the plaque behind you, a character-defining feature of Grantville. And then provide an authentic historic resource for the community that can serve as a tourism attraction as well. There's a lot of people who really get into railroad history, and so they travel around looking at depots. So if you have one that's pretty authentic and intact, people will come to your community to see that, take photos, have events, etc. To come up with a plan for the building, we looked for historic information on it. There are no interior photos. We have one exterior photo that we used in our previous work. The only thing that we know about the interior is from a 1921 Sanborn fire insurance map, which is on page 2 at the bottom, and that it's turned sideways. The depot, or the railroad tracks, are running horizontally at the top of the image. So the depot is turned kind of 90 degrees. The bottom of the image would be where Broad Street is. That gives you an idea of the interior makeup, because the building has gone through a lot of changes over the decades. And so before we started looking at anything with the interior, we wanted to get an idea of where it may have started. On page 3, you can see what we've started out with. Drop ceilings have been added throughout the building, whether they were acoustical tile like we have here or drywall. They were throughout the building. Fake wood paneling had been added. Carpet moldings have been removed in certain places. Kitchenette had been added. Restrooms were reconfigured, etc. So as you can see from these images, it had undergone quite a bit of change in the time that it was the Genealogical Society, as well as when it was the police station. So we had some money left over in the exterior restoration budget, so we went ahead, and while we were out there working and had a dumpster on site, went ahead and had a demolition crew remove all of the non-historic elements that we could identify. So we got rid of all the paneling, the ceilings, the carpet, kitchenette, restrooms, tried to take it back to the earliest historic layout and finishes that we could find within the building. So you can find images of that on page 5. So in the upper image on page 5, you can see where pieces of the beadboard had been removed to run wiring. Over the years, wiring inside that building had been done with pretty much everything but a coat hanger. So you can actually see that in the lower image, the wires just going everywhere above what had been the drop ceiling level. Also, the inclusion of HVAC into the building. We had seen where they just chopped through the wood walls to run ductwork, etc. Doorway casings have been removed. You can see the outline of that in some of the images. But overall, the building is actually fairly intact. The biggest change that we noted was at some point, likely due to termite damage, the entire base of the building had been cut off in a concrete slab and based all the walls. You can see that on the exterior as well as at all the interior walls. So based on the goals for the building and then what we found was still intact, we're proposing the scope on page 6. Completely rewire the building, bring it up to code. install low-profile exterior lighting, both for security and also to enhance the building's looks at night. Provide historically appropriate interior lighting and ceiling fans inside so that the building looks authentic but is also functional for today. A new HVAC system needs to be installed. The one that's currently in there is only a few years old, but because we have raised the ceiling by 4 feet, it cannot keep up with the volume of space in the current building as it's configured. So we would need a new HVAC system that we would propose putting in the attic. We have 9 feet of attic space, so why not use it versus having ductwork that you would see from below. We also have the Freon lines for the condenser are running inside the building. We propose putting those in the wall. New attic insulation, adding an ADA, American with Disabilities Act compliant unisex restroom. The building is not but about 1,500 square feet, so even though it's considered for code purposes a assembly space, it's not big enough to need more than one restroom, which we have plenty of space for. Reroute the existing plumbing and the installation of a security system for, obviously it's going to be holding items from the museum, etc. From a historic standpoint, propose keeping the beadboard walls and we salvaged all the beadboard that we could on the interior that was loose, and then also having new material milled to match. It's not particularly expensive. We're talking 73 cents a linear foot. We're not talking about massive amounts of it because most of it's intact. We would install a tall baseboard to hide that concrete foundation, and then install salvaged interior doors, much like we did on the exterior, to match the one remaining original one. And then because we have the concrete floor, we're proposing an LVT wood floor. It's not actually wood, it's similar to what we have here in this room. Gives the same look, but it can go on top of the concrete. And then we found the historic color scheme of the interior, so we proposed putting that back. We also found where the ticket windows for both waiting rooms. Those can be replicated to help provide some authenticity, certainly, to the one waiting room side of the building. The mayor would really like to see a wood stove put back inside the building, and then relocate the waiting room benches that are in the back of this room back over to the depot. It doesn't have a number, but it would be page 7. You'll see a proposed layout. This is based on the existing layout of the building. We're not proposing moving any walls, moving any doors, not adding any walls, not adding any doors, again, to keep costs down and also not mess with the historic authenticity of the building. So we've got a waiting room up at the front that would be at the corner of Main and Broad. Folks to come in. There's interest in having a visitor information space, as well as somewhere for the sale of some Grantville items. So that's in yellow. Code requires us to have a janitorial closet and the ADA restroom, so those are the purple and green areas denoted on the plan. Those are in the former restroom spaces. And then the museum/gallery space. That room is about the size of this half of the council chamber. The other pages just kind of go through in more detail, talking about the exterior lighting, something that will basically be very hidden. The reason that didn't happen in the current exterior restoration of the building is since the building needed to be completely rewired. I figured it would be, as Al was talking about earlier, it'll be cheaper if we just do it all at one time versus just rewiring for exterior lights and not messing with the interior at the same time. Got some examples of appropriate interior lighting. Still provides plenty of light to the building and also during the daytime. As you've seen, the newly refurbished windows let in massive amounts of natural light to the building. The page 10 kind of has a breakdown of LVT flooring. It's a vinyl material. It wears very well, but they've made a lot of strides with that material to where it actually really does look like wood. So a good quality material, though, will be less than half the cost of wood and doesn't require us to do anything crazy with the concrete slab. On page 11, you can see the ductwork that we found when we started above the drop ceiling. while like a spiral duct or something that you see in kind of an industrial space would look slightly different than this. This is, we're proposing that we kind of avoid this look of having ductwork hanging from the ceiling. We have, as I say, a huge attic, so why not utilize it for services? On page 12, you can see where we have some original casing around the windows, but then the paint lines are nice enough to show us where we had original trim that has gone missing, so we know which openings had corner blocks because the paint line steps up and around. So we have the opportunity to do a really thoughtful and authentic rehabilitation of the exterior while still keeping with what the city needs the building to function as, without adding a massive amount of cost to the project. And then we were able to find this two-tone paint scheme on the interior. It's kind of a darkish gray blue at the bottom and off-white at the top. That was really typical of the period because obviously the lower on the wall, you were trying to hide dirt, etc. So it still does that today, but again, it just brings back an authentic feel to the building that tourists and things are looking for. And it also saves us from having to rack our brains to come up with something better that's not actually historic. Why not go with what's original anyway? And then the last page, you can see the bench in the back as well as an example of a appropriate wood stove, et cetera, things like that would be some other historic elements to go into the building. But that's kind of what we're proposing. I know there was kind of some confusion between different proposals, so my apologies for any confusion from us. But we were just proposing to do the design work since I was already over there overseeing the exterior work. Went ahead and started digging into that to try to get as much information together as possible, so we had something good to present to y'all. As far as it being an a la carte item, I wasn't actually thinking of charging specifically for that. I was just thinking of charging as part of the overall work going forward. So my apologies for the odd differences in cost. So if y'all have any questions, feel free.
Anybody have here?
Yeah, I got a few.
Yes, sir.
Well, is it gonna be a lot more expensive to put the duct work in the attic, or?
No, because either way, if we put the ductwork in the attic versus in the room, we still have to cut through the ceiling, either to get the ductwork into the room or to put a vent in the ceiling. So one just provides you with less clutter on the ceiling.
Well, one more time,
Yes, sir.
your $15,000, what you gonna do?
So we were proposing to come up
Simply, put it simply,
with a plan that you guys approved to do the work, bid that out with y'all's approval to subcontractors, and then be on site to oversee the implementation of that work so that when the project is done.
So this would be basically the design and the supervision?
Yes, sir.
Do you have you got any estimation on how many hours it's gonna take of your time to do that?
So we were on site for the exterior for 3 days per week for about 4 months this past time. So I think this will be a little bit quicker, but I would imagine that we're
3
looking at
days for how long?
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah, we had some weather delays and things like that in there as well, but no, I imagine that we will have 200 hours into the project by the time it's finished easily.
Anything else?
No, that's
So we good, Mark?
No, I'm good.
Willie? You got anything?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Is the other company here?
Neither one, sir.
Okay. Have we heard from them at all?
Placemaker Design, they have been informed, we have not heard anything.
Okay. I guess it's time to make that phone call again, because she had to leave. So, and she does want to vote.
Hello?
Ruby,
Yes, sir?
I'm about to ask for a motion to approve one of these design companies. So far, the only one that showed up was the Preservation South LLC, which is Kyle Campbell that did the exterior work. So you said you wanted to be a part of the vote, so that's the purpose in calling you back.
All right.
All right.
I would like to make a motion that Kyle Campbell does the interior work for the passenger depot.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second to this?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any questions or further discussion?
I do have one more question. Does anybody have an estimation of what this is gonna cost when it's done? I mean, Kyle, have you got I just, and I know that's irrelevant to what we're doing right now, but I meant to ask you that when you.
We've started getting together proposals from local subs for some of the work. We haven't gotten all of the phases complete, and none of those scopes have been approved by y'all or the city manager. But right now, we're at around $60,000 for the work on the interior. There's still some outstanding subcontractors.
All right, and that money, whatever money it is, will come out of the approved, special purpose local option sales tax,
Yes, sir.
that is reserved for historic, restoration, preservation, however it is of our structure, right?
That only takes place in 2019, sir. Right now, we're using SPOS dollars, recreation, culture monies.
And all of those, it could come out of either one of those accounts,
It
correct?
could, yes, sir.
And there's a possibility we would get a little bit of money between now and January.
Yes, sir, that is a possibility.
So, all right. And this is money, this is not, we're not going, we wouldn't necessarily have to raise property taxes or anything to pay for this building, am I correct or not?
You are correct.
Okay. Just want to make it clear. All right, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve Kyle Campbell, signify by aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it, so ordered. Kyle Campbell will be the approved for the interior
Preservation
design.
South LLC, that's who the,
LLC, my bad. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
all right, thank you, Ruby, hope everything's going your way.
It is. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good evening.
Okay,
Now
Mr.
we have
Mayor?
New business.
Yes, sir. That brings us to new business. Approval of the alcohol beverage license for Nico's Family Restaurant located at 24 Main Street. I believe that's a typo. I believe it should be 22 Main Street. That was, pardon me, 24 Main Street was the advertised location. I apologize. I should have looked there, but it's 24 Main Street, Granville, Georgia.
So this is the correct address?
Correct.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the alcohol beverage license for Nico's Family Restaurant located 24 Main Street, Granville, Georgia, 30220?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and I have a second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Welcome to Granville.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is discussion and approval of Micah Alba Jr.'s Eagle Scout project. And please accept my apologies. Come up, please, Mike. I misspelled his name. It's M-I-C-A-H. Here's a quick outline of his Eagle Scout project. He approached me along with Commissioner Robert Allen for this area, Boy Scouts of America, to do a Eagle Scout project.
And you said you misspelled his word for his name?
It's spelled correctly on his sheet. I have it misspelled on the agenda.
Okay, we're gonna have to take your merit badge for spelling.
Yes, sir, it's been a long time coming, and I apologize, I've lost my merit badge. Micah, pull the, and tell the mayor and city council what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, and so forth. Introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Micah Alba. I live in Noonan, and I'm scouting with Troop 137. I've been scouting since I was 8, starting with Cub Scouts. And I like the sports soccer and football. My project is to clear away the plants in the cemetery behind the city hall, and being able to replace the old fence, trimming the trees and the bushes, and being able to document the graves. I'm planning on doing the project on September 26th or October 10th.
Now, he is talking about the cemetery behind City Hall. According to Leon Dyes, they called that the Confederate Cemetery because there's some tombstones of Confederate soldiers. I have not validated that, but Leon Dyes, I'm sure, cannot be incorrect. Go ahead, Micah.
I will be needing a dumpster, and I was just wondering which date would work best on the September 26th or October 10th.
We'll work that out. The city will provide a dumpster. The city will provide a water connection, anything that we can provide in kind. I have already told Micah that the city itself, the city of Graniteville, cannot donate money to his project, although individuals can donate to his project. The cost is approximately $1,500 for new fencing and everything. So, but we will provide the dumpster, the water, and there was one other thing that you wanted.
I think that was it.
Okay, good.
I have been able to find a fence for the new cemetery. Someone donated the fence panels, and we just need to buy the post and some concrete and gravel. At most, the fence post will be $40 per post. We're trying to find it cheaper, like $25. And the concrete and gravel will total it up to $250. And that will be about $1,210 for the fence and the post. With the fence, I was wondering if we wanted to have a gate or just leave it open.
We will leave it open.
Okay, thank you. At the bottom of your sheet, it tells you what supplies we'll be bringing and what everyone needs.
And he will be enlisting other scouts to help him with project. He has a younger brother who's back there. His mother's back there. His younger brother's in his scout uniform. So it's a true scouting family.
Sounds like a plan.
And we would ask the city council, the mayor and city council, to approve his project and give the city manager approval to provide any in-kind resources that are needed for his project. It obviously will beautify the cemetery behind City Hall.
You heard the recommendation. It's the will of the council.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the Eagle Scout project. And do I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you, sir, very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And best of luck in your Eagle Scout.
Hey, sir, do you know what kind of posts you gonna need?
We'll be probably getting some posts, 6-foot posts,
Do you know
vinyl
if
posts.
they're round or dimensional, or do you know?
Like 4x4 posts or round
Round
posts?
posts?
Like a 4x4 post.
Okay,
It had to be pressure treated, so.
sure. I'll try to help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
I sell posts, so I'll try to help you. I'll get you some cheaper than anywhere else you can get them, I'll put it like that.
I like free.
Well, we'll work on that too, but I come up here giving stuff away, I gotta answer to my wife, you know?
You'll learn about that one.
Pardon me, I was just signing approval of his project. Thank you. We'll talk by telephone.
Thank you.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda, when we amended the agenda, we withdrew that discussion approval of the committee, of the community revitalization plan, and in its place, we put an application for special event permit, the Walking Dead Season 9 premiere party. It will be held on October the 7th, 2018, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the Freight Depot. And Danelia is here, Ms. Caldwell, to talk about it. Come on up, please.
Get down, I'm so tall. Hi. Basically, this is just a premiere party for all lovers of The Walking Dead. It's going to be a very private event, max maybe 50 people. We're going to have games, prizes, there's going to be music, no alcohol will be served. And I do want to open that up to the community, but we do ask that the tickets be purchased in advance. That way, we'll have enough food for everyone.
No, sir, I just got this on Friday, and I forwarded it to you all for your consideration.
Have you had an opportunity to look at it?
No, sir.
Something we can do, or?
Well, I mean, is there a fee for renting the?
Correct, there's a fee for renting the Freight Depot, and that has been paid.
Okay.
A fee and a deposit.
There's nothing to stop us.
Do they have to have a permit if they rented the Freight Depot?
Yeah, that's, I'm not,
For a party, anything that impacts the streets of the city of Grantville we require a special event permit. And obviously, if you have 50 people, you are going to impact the streets around the freight depot.
Yes, sir.
My question goes to Mr.
Isn't there a
Mitchell.
section in there that says expected more than 75? I'm not much of the Walking Dead,
That's okay.
but she doesn't miss it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't either. I don't either, but
Oh, man.
I have to
I was sad when
Carl died,
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, that broke my heart. And also I want to add, being that the episode Clear was filmed here, and also the Freight Depot was the episode where Carl, a character in the show, he goes to retrieve, you know, a photo, and there was filming done there. So it's really special to have it in the Freight Depot, being, you know, it was filmed there.
Mr. Mitchell, my question would be on the legality of collecting admission fee to an event taking place at a rented depot that is city property owned.
Well, but they're paying the fee to rent the depot, so I don't think there's any,
I believe it falls under they need to be a charitable organization under state law.
When is this planned?
October 7th. It's a Sunday.
So we need more time researching the hell out. I would, if necessary, be in favor of calling the meeting just for this, to approve it.
I mean, your ordinance does require that a special event permit be filed at least 75 days prior to the event, so it certainly would well short of the required time frame for receiving and considering a special event permit.
Doesn't have the exceptions down at the bottom of it.
The other thing, again, just quickly trying to look here, says except for the cleaning of the area, no special events should be allowed to continue beyond the time approved on the permit for the event. The hours of operation should be no more than 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a recommendation that we table it, since we're still a little ways out to get a little more information? Okay, it seems like there's just some little nuances that need to
Well,
be,
that's what I was trying to,
yeah.
and, you know, I don't want to jeopardize any time frames as far as, but, yeah, if that would be possible, I'm all in favor of it, and I was gonna ask for that motion.
The other point, Matt, just to address this back to the mayor's point earlier, I finally found what I was looking for along that. A special event is defined as an event which lasts for 2 or more continuous days or is reasonably expected to have more than 75 people gather in a public park or on a public street or on other public rights-of-way owned by or located in the city, and certainly this is a public facility, or is reasonably expected to have more than 100 people gather on privately owned property. So
that would or would not classify as a special event?
Well, if they're not gonna have more than 75 people gather, it doesn't appear that it would meet the definition of a special event.
Then the only other question would be if it's state law. So I think at this point, like Mr. Key recommended, we could table it with the understanding that, as soon as we get, legal opinion that we can go forward, I'd be in favor of calling a meeting.
We can get a legal opinion that special event permit is not required.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, whatever.
That, I mean, that's, reading
I
that
mean,
definition, that's
he was
what I.
speaking of the admission part.
And if that's some state law provision, we don't enforce that, so, but it does not meet that portion of the definition of a special event if she's only, planning to have, 50 people there. Now, she needs to understand that she runs the risk if she violates that, then she runs the risk of being cited for violating the ordinance and not having the permit that she should have been required to have. So, but if in fact they intend to limit the number of people to less than 75, then there is no special event permit required.
Are you gonna have any muscle there?
Yes, we are having security. I have 2 men that are gonna be security.
I mean, I think the ordinance says expected.
Right.
Than the amount of people, I would think, you know,
Yeah, then-
and that's where
then-
it comes into play, the streets, but
Then I take it the consensus is a special event permit is not required, and I apologize for requirement.
No, I agree with you though, Al. I mean,
Right.
it could have the potential to impact.
That'll be
the
safe.
parking, like I said, the parking could be a bigger problem than how many people are there.
But the
I
process.
mean, if there was 50 people showed up, there could be 25.
Okay,
I'm just
does the
talking-
council need to do anything?
No, sir, I don't think so.
Good to go.
Good to
You
go.
got your reservation and all that stuff?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But if
I
you get
apologize.
76, send one of them home. All right, thank you.
That brings us to the first reading of ordinance number 2018-5, amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Granville to make the following text: to prohibit parking of certain vehicles in any single or multi-family residential zoning district and for other purposes. This being the first reading, no action is required.
Let me just say, as a means of things that no longer exist, a few years ago, the city amended its zoning ordinance in